All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Haracharash. A double honors unto the apostles and elders of James Great Millstone, and a sincere Shalom to Yakim, bringing out this word in diligence and in truth. And as you see here, articles from End Time Headlines, and it reads, Iran has shifted its strategy in conflict with the U.S. from a defensive posture to a fully offensive. Right? And we ultimately understand that this is all due to prophecy, man. Right? As the lesson says, the Carmanians are strong because of what? Prophecy. Right? These ancient Persians, right? Or Persians, right? Understanding that's their biblical identity. Right? When you look at the previous kingdom in which they ruled, right? The Medo-Persian Empire, hey, this is the same wrath in which they had back then. Ultimately, Yahweh Shimon Shah has allowed it to become more technologically advanced, right? But what you're seeing here is this here scripture come to light. This is Isaiah 13 and 40. And it reads, the noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord Yahweh of hosts mustereth the hosts of the battle. And when you go into this word mustereth, right? The Lord is orchestrating this battle, man. Right? It says to muster, Paqad 864:85. It says to pay attention, to muster, to attend, to reckon, to visit or punish, to lay upon as a charge, to be visited, right? To be made overseer, to number, right? To visit, to punish. Ultimately, the Lord has the heart of the king in his hands, as the scripture says, according to the book of Proverbs, the 21st chapter. Right? It says the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord, hand of Yahweh Shem Shai. And as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Right? And you read when in this 5th verse, it speaks about what? The nuclear missiles being shot upon Babylon the Great. Right? And I'll just read it now, but we'll get back into, this towards the end. It says, they come from a far country, from the end of heaven. Speaking of what? The weapons of the Lord's indignation, Isaiah 54:16. Right? It says, even the Lord, Yahweh, and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land, right? The scripture speaks about the waster to destroy, right? In Revelation, I believe, was that Revelation 9? 1 second. Make sure I'm stating the right precept. I see, maybe 11. So like it. Yeah, Revelation 9. Verses 9 down to 12 speaks about that destruction, right? But let's continue this really quick in the article so we can get into this destruction, right? Because where it's saying Iran's new strategy has become offensive, you see what they're showing here, right? These are the same instruments, so to speak, in which our forefathers seen in the visions in which Yahweh Shema Shai gave them, right? The scriptures say the arrows were shot from one end of the earth into the other. Hey, well, these missiles are what they actually seen. There was no word in the ancient days for thermonuclear missiles. There was no word in the Hebrew for ICBMs, man. But this is the vision in which they seen. They seen arrow-like structures being shot from one continent into the next and destroying, wasting the whole land. They seen the power of these missiles be shot over, and then what? The earth moved to and fro like a drunkard, right? So Iran plays a huge part of prophecy, man. And we're going to go into 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter, to show you who the Carmanians are, which the Carmanians are the Iranians, right? It says, according to a report from YNet News, a senior Iranian official has declared that Tehran, the capital of Iran, is abandoning its defensive posture in the conflict with the U.S. and shifting to a fully offensive strategy if Washington fails to ease its naval blockade within a matter of weeks. So you're seeing the conflict and wars and rumors of wars geopolitically, And they're seeing the turmoil in the states as far as the NWI, the Northwest Indiana, right? Basically go without power. So you're seeing, a basically like a rolling snow of Jacob's trouble here in the states, while you're seeing a tensions rise, globally, dealing with the whore, which is America, Babylon the Great. So let's go here. All right, this second is 15, and I'm gonna start here at verse 28, and it reads, "Behold, a horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east." Right, and this appearance of the east is speaking about what the Middle Eastern tensions, or as Elder Malcolm, speaks about Eastern Asia, man, or it's like a Western Asia, right? Western Asia, right, which is the East, the Middle East. These are war tensions and conflicts in which the prophet seen, Prophet Ezra is going in about. Behold, a horrible vision, because he's witnessing war. He's witnessing fire being thrown down from the heavens, man, right, by way of these missiles. It says, and the appearance thereof from the east, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia, right, and these are speaking about actual countries in the Middle East, man, right? Those dragons of Arabia, or the nations of the dragons of Arabia, are speaking about your nations like Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, so forth and so on, man. These are the dragons of Arabia, and it says, shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble, right? It says, and the thing about these dragons of Arabia, when you take a look at these nations in which the scripture is speaking about, these are the same nations in which America has bases in, right? America has bases in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, in United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia, and the beautiful position in which the Lord is playing, how he has the minds of the Iranians, right? He's either threatened to bomb or send forth a missile strike upon those U.S. bases in those countries, or actually hit them, right? And we also understand with that blockade that's going down in the Strait of Hormuz, in those various straits in that region, guess what? It's not able to supply those bases with what? With goods, man, as well as hiking the price of oil up for the neighboring nations over there, man. So there's a what the Lord is doing, he's playing chess, man. And with that little naval blockade, with that little water passage, not saying as little as in like a width, but just it being a strait of water, with that strait of water being closed or limited from who can leave and who can come in, guess what? That's causing chaos worldwide, right? So it's not just as if this is a problem that's just all nuclear. No, there's a word from the way things move. Lord will the word comes back to me. Logistics, call law and Yahbashim Shai, right? It's messing up logistics, man. Because every boat, is on a time schedule, right? They expect this barrel of oil or these barrels of oils to come upon this cargo ship at this time and to make it to land by this time. Well, all of that time, the timeline has been messed up due to what? War. So everyone is feeling it, including what? America, right? And especially with the world looking at America as the hammer, right? A place untouchable, right? The scriptures say a land that dwelleth carelessly, right? In Ezekiel, the 38th chapter speaks about what? The land without walls, right? When we see Iran holding their own against the quote unquote greatest army in the world, guess what? People look at that and marvel because it's like, wait up, Iran being such a small nation, but the scripture speaks about how these Carmanians are going to rage in wrath, right? Ultimately, this prophecy is due to prophecy in which Iran isn't just folding, isn't just breaking under the United States strike underneath their hammer, man. That's all due to prophecy, right? And we read in Isaiah 13:4, the Lord of hosts, right, mustereth the host of the battle. So Yahweh Shimon Shah is controlling every aspect of this war, man. All right, so let's read the 30th verse, and it reads, also the Carmanians raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. So as I said before, the Carmanians are the Iranians, right? Or the Persians, right? Which are Iran. And that land of Assyria speaking about here is not speaking of ancient Assyria. It's actually speaking about America, man. Right? And how are they going to waste a portion of the land? Ultimately by thermonuclear fire, raining down upon this place. So when we go back into Isaiah the 13th chapter in the 5th verse, and it reads, they come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. Guess what? This is still speaking about the missiles, that destruction. So when we go into a precept like Joel 3, right? And we go into the 9th verse, and it reads, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Right? This is them preparing or gearing up for what? You see every nation, whether it be China, whether it be Russia, North Korea. Wait, and it's funny because Russia, China, and North Korea have all aided in Iran, basically fighting against the US. Right? A news article just came out on how basically all the weapons in which Iran is either striking US bases with or defending themselves against the American missiles and drones with are all parts from North Korea. Right? So it's shocking the reporters in the US that North Korea has a larger hand in this war than they actually thought. Right? So if North Korea has their hand in this deep, right, fighting on the side of Iran, how much more Russia and China? We've heard how many different reporters speak about how Russia and China have both given satellite global positioning, basically coordinates on certain US leaders, and that's how Iran is taking them out. Right? So we're seeing these nations ultimately rise up and fight against the beast together, though it's not the end, because the MOTB still has to be established. We're seeing the term of everybody fighting against the bully, man. This is what we're in the midst of, right? And scriptures tell us this is exactly what was going to be happening, right? So the words of Yahweh Bashim Shai do not return unto him void. This verse 11, it says, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down. Oops, like I didn't read 10. I gotta read 10. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. And that's the point, right? You're seeing the nations that were once known for agricultural purposes. They're now taking that money out of that agricultural department and gearing up towards strengthening their military, right? You're seeing Iran basically tell you, it don't matter how many bombs they fire at us. Every day we're going to be able to resupply our munitions, and we'll never run out of these drones or missiles to fight back against our enemies. But as this article is saying, guess what? Now Iran is saying they're going from a defensive posture to a fully offensive one. So when we go back into this article, it says Iran has given the U.S. a limited window describing a few weeks to fully implement a previously agreed memorandum of understanding. The precise timetable will be communicated to Washington and regional governments through mediators. Tehran no longer believes pressure on the United States or mediation by neighboring countries can produce a lasting peace. And that's wise, because look at every peace agreement or peace deal that the U.S. has came up with Iran. They've broken it every time, right? In the midst of them telling, hey, we're going to allow your citizens to leave, we're going to give you this window, a period of time, to get these, basically these citizens out of here that's not in the war. What did the U.S. do? Straight bomb them. What did Israel do? Straight bomb them, right? So it says if diplomacy collapses, all Iranian entities will be prepared to escalate tensions in the Strait of Hormuz and across the wider region. Iran, the official stress, will not wait indefinitely while American warships maintain a blockade that has already severely restricted Iranian oil exports and commercial shipping. The warning arrives amid a sharp collapse in traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical energy corridors. Before the war that began in late February, roughly 1/5 of global crude oil and liquefied natural gas shipments passed through the narrow waterway between Iran and Oman, right? Ship tracking data now shows that the volume has fallen to a fraction of previous levels. Only 5 commodity vessels were recorded on a recent Saturday and none of the following Sunday, compared with more than 130 daily transits before the conflict, right? So they're losing money. The U.S. is losing money. Basically, everybody is losing money and everyone's losing resources because what? That blockade. Says some vessels may be sailing with tracking systems disabled, but the overall decline is unmistakable. U.S. officials have projected confidence that the blockade can continue. Right? PK stated last week that the Navy can sustain the operation indefinitely by rotating ships through the region. Hey, but you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to push ships all the way through that strait, because in doing so, Iran is going to bomb them. Right? And we see that the morale between the U.S. military, or I should say the U.S. Navy, is weakening. You don't think the soldiers that's on these other ships have seen what is still occurring at the USS Lincoln? You think that make them want to fight, seeing that their fellow comrades are going through hellish conditions on a ship, basically on a floating prison? Right? It says Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has signaled an additional measures to deepen Iran's economic isolation. It says Trump has claimed the U.S. holds total control, calling the naval presence a wall of steel. And of course he's going to say that because the devil ain't going to tell you what the truth is. He's going to tell you what he wants the truth to be. It says Tehran insists the waterway remains under Iranian control and that normal commercial traffic will not resume until American commitments are met. So there it is. The latest Iranian statements follow the collapse of an interim agreement reached in June that was intended to halt military operations and set a timetable for mutual obligations. That memorandum unraveled after Trump declared it over on July 7th, and Iran subsequently suspended it. Washington has accused Tehran of failing to reopen the strait. Iran counters that the U.S. failed to lift restrictions on Iranian ports and release frozen assets. Israeli officials say that they are detecting signs that Iran's hardline leadership is preparing for a more aggressive, potentially targeting energy infrastructure, shipping routes, and U.S. allies. And that's when you see those bases, right, in the U.S. In these Arab countries become destroyed. And then you also see what your U.S. partners, right, having to fight against or decide to fight against, right, Iran. So NATO and the EU, essentially. It says a senior Israeli official assessed the risk in stark terms. If Tehran concludes that the continuation of the blockade threatens the stability of the regime and its ability to finance the security apparatus and the organization it supports, it may try to change the equation through regional escalation, right? So basically, Iran has the upper hand right now, right? And all the war crimes that were done on the Iranians by the U.S., the Iranians are basically saying, okay, now it's fair game. You know, we no longer just going to take this ass whooping or take our citizens, you know, getting destroyed by you. It's now time for us to fight. So going back into 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter and the 30th verse, it tells us also the Carmanians raging in wrath, right? This is that power, man, right? That power that they have, that anger, right? So now they're not just about to just be pushed over no more. They're not just about to get bullied. Shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood. And when you take a look at the characteristics of a wild boar, regardless of what predator is trying to fight against it, that boar is going to fight for its life, right? The scriptures tell us to watch the animals and the behavior, and them you'll find wisdom, paraphrasing, right? So when you take a look at Animal Planet and you look at wild boars, of course they're some of the smallest animals when you take a look at the prey that they're going against. It's like the predators that they're going against. They're fighting against lions, both the male and the female. They're fighting against, tigers. They're fighting against, all these different hyenas, so forth and so on. They're fighting against all these different things, man, right? But guess what they don't do? They don't lay down. They will chase a lion out his I'm about to say out his drawers, man. But they'll chase a lion, down, man. Let one of the lions get one of their children. You'll get those wild boars to literally, go and strike that lion, man. So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing these wild boars or that animal, that beast, right? That them Iranians go in. They no longer just being a pushover. It says, and with great power shall they come, right? And that power is also being supplied by Russia. It's being supplied by North Korea. It's being supplied by China, right? And join battle with them, right? They're not physically launching the missiles themselves, but they're giving them the ammo to put in the gun, right? It says, and they shall waste a portion of the land of Assyrians. And that's what we're going to see in the end game. Ultimately, the land of Assyria, or spiritually Assyria, right? America is likened unto the Assyrians, just as Esau is likened unto the Assyrians, so-called white man, Isaiah 10:5, right? It says, and then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature, right? When they see the Carmanians and the rest of these nations of the world, as the scriptures say, all ye that bend the bow shoot at her and spare no arrows. When they see all these different nations fight against this whore, they gonna remember their power and be like, you know what? Let's press this button on their ass too. It says, and if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them. Right? So that's the point, man. That's the point right there. Now, when we go here, we could finish it out. See if it's any more in this article. It says, under that scenario, Iran could seek to disrupt oil and gas supplies, drive up global energy prices, and raise political pressure on Washington, particularly as the United States approaches midterm elections. Israeli and American officials are also watching Iran's effort to rebuild damaged missile and drone capabilities, preparing for the possibility that Tehran itself could initiate the next major round of fighting, starting with limited strikes on shipping or energy targets that expand into broader confrontation. Iran-backed groups have already intensified pressure elsewhere. The Houthis in Yemen have declared a naval blockade on Saudi Arabia at the Baal Maneb Strait, another vital choke point where traffic has also declined. The core danger, as outlined in the YNet report, is that Iran's declared shift to a fully offensive policy could turn the economic standoff over Hormuz into a new wave of regional conflict if Tehran decides diplomacy will not end the American blockades. And guess what? They know it's not. They know diplomacy isn't going to end the American blockade. They're going to have to get physical with this whole man, right? And prophecy says so, right? So ultimately, it is going to end in thermonuclear destruction, but we're going to see a lot of missiles fly. Before this land just is pelted with, as the scripture says, 200,000, right? But that was the point. We're seeing tensions rise, and we're seeing prophecy right before our eyes. The Lord willing, this lesson was edifying unto the body. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Haracha, Kodash. And double honors unto the apostles and elders of GMS Great Millstone, and a sincere shalom to Yakim bringing out this word in diligence and in truth. Shalom.